special energy that you pick up on. We've talked, my wife and I've talked about regret a lot in our Black financial therapy department. That was one of the many reasons why we created the first ever Black financial therapy department in the Black Business School, is because we realized that there's a lot of pain in our community. There's a lot of unhealed trauma, unresolved issues, family challenges. Lots of families have struggled around a lot of issues, emotional issues, and it ends up affecting them economically. And it just kind of goes on and on. You can keep going down the rabbit hole. And so regret is an interesting thing because it's one of those things where it really can be a blessing actually if you use it in the right way. And here's the first thing. Let me just start first things first. In your reflective journal, that's what I want you to reflect on. It's on, let's see, for day 22. The day 22 reflection is, what financial regrets do you have in your lifetime? And what I'll do is I actually put the slide on the screen so you can see the slide. It's a simple slide, but maybe seeing the slide will help us in terms of where we are. Let me put this up here. All right, so here we go. All right, so what financial regrets do you have in your lifetime? And I want you to write down maybe four things in your journal that you regret, right? I want you to sort of look at that and write down these four things and say, I wish I hadn't done this. And so I saw divorce. I saw someone mentioned investing earlier. I saw the word student loans. That's a big regret for a lot of people. Kids. I saw that. And then I saw Bitcoin, which actually kind of links to an early one starting earlier. So let me one, two, three, four. Let's focus on those four, right? And I'll kind of give you just I'll go into the ether and just see what God tells me to share with you about my experience in those areas, what I've seen, and some ways you might want to deal with that. So let's start with divorce. One thing about divorce that comes to mind is that one huge economic mistake that we make in general is many of us are trained not to link our personal relationships with our economics. Like, we think that they have nothing to do with each other. Like, we feel that I can go be a high flyer financially, but make terrible mistakes when it comes to the types of people that I sleep with, the types of people that I bring into my circle, the person that I marry, things like that. And I just really uh would encourage you in your financial reflection to really just know that these things are related. Marrying the right person can make you a multimillionaire. Marrying the wrong person can put you in the poorhouse. And actually, I wrote about this a lot in the book Financial Lovemaking, which I mentioned to you guys. It's on Amazon, it's on Audible if you want to grab a copy. But basically, in that book, I saw all these examples of people whose financial lives were just wrecked because they married the wrong person. I'm talking about men and women. Usually on the male side, it would be similar to I saw a friend that I went to college with at the University of Kentucky, and we didn't know each other in college, but we were there at the same time. And he was about maybe 29 years old. And I said, "So what have you done since college?" And he said, "Well, I got married right out of college and I got a divorce." And he was really sad because he said everything that he'd worked for, he pretty much lost a big chunk of it. He lost almost all of his money. And on top of that, he lost his kids. He could see he had visitation, but it was very painful for him to go from seeing his kids every morning for breakfast to only seeing them once every 2 weeks. It was very difficult for him, and we ignore that trauma. For some reason, we don't pay attention to that, but that's very painful for people. And um, and so really, there's no sort of quick, easy fix for that. There's no simple solution because I'm not here to tell you how to manage your relationships. Now, my wife is the relationship therapist. Her website's coachingwithdralicia.com, and you can go and see, talk to her if you want to. She's seeing clients, I think, right this minute, right now. She's literally seeing a couple about their relationship. And I think that that's a good investment because that protects the empire, right? When you're managing your marriage by getting some outside help, that's you're protecting the institution that you're building. Your family is that first institution. We've talked about that in the 10 commandments of Black economic power. I really work hard to persuade you that the Black family is a multi-million dollar asset that has been deliberately destroyed, and one that we've allowed to be destroyed. And I personally think that rebuilding that institution carefully and intentionally is one of the keys to wealth. right? And this is where consciousness comes into play, because if you're not conscious about it, if you simply lean on your habits and what everyone else is doing and lean on bad culture to build these relationships, then you're going to continue to get bad outcomes. You're going to continue to get a whole community full of baby mama, baby daddy stuff, drama, trauma, disrespect, pain, ignorance, chaos, right? So you have to intentionally. It's like if I'm in a city where there's lots of violence and chaos, I have to intentionally make a map to get out of that city and go to a better place, right? So you have to intentionally exit the building. And then the other thing about intentionality and consciousness, remember I was explaining consciousness in terms of going to another dimension. When you go to another dimension, like when I was talking about driving through the traffic jam, and when you're in the car, all you see are the cars in front of you, all you can see are the freeways. But when I got in the airplane, I became very conscious of the route because I could see the mountains and lakes and rivers and nuclear power plants and all these ways I could get to the destination without getting caught in the traffic jam. So going to that higher dimension is really important, because when you go to the higher dimension and you become conscious financially, what happens is you start seeing things differently from everyone else. You start playing chess instead of checkers. You become the canary in the mine. You have ascension. Thank you. That's a great word, Calvin. Ascension. You're literally going up to the third, fourth, or even fifth dimension, where you don't just see what is happening right now. You see what has happened, what is going to happen, what could happen, right? You can see all these, and then what's happening in places where you're not even involved. And this consciousness journey started with me when I was about 22 years old. When I was 22, it was very, very hard for me to live by myself. I'd never lived without a roommate before. And at first I was very lonely. I kind of got sad because there was nobody around. But then about 22 to 23, in that age bracket, I started to embrace being alone, because being alone was when I started to figure things out. And I started learning by looking at the past, the present, the future. I looked at other people's lives. I looked around me and I started seeing things and patterns that other people didn't see. And I remember I remember when I was 22 years old, I used to say to myself, "Gosh, I hope one day I get to be a famous professor so I can tell people what I'm learning so that they'll actually listen." I really remember thinking that literally 30 years ago. I used to think this to myself, and here I am, like sharing this with you. So it's kind of awesome, right? It's really cool. It's like living the dream, man. I swear. But anyway, so the point is to say that um when you get that consciousness, so go back to we I saw that D word, divorce. Um yeah. Yeah, like if I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about this from, let's focus specifically on a wealth building standpoint. I'm literally thinking about it from the very beginning. Like I'm literally processing carefully what kind of woman I even go on a date with, what kind of woman I'm going to sleep with, what kind of woman I might even be friends with. When I met my wife, I met her in the library. I didn't meet her in the night in a club. I didn't meet her. She wasn't working in Magic City or nothing. She could have. She's that pretty, but that wasn't her thing. She was in the library studying, and that was, again, my sloppy way of trying to be conscious and saying, I think I want, if I pick a wife or a mother for my kids, I think I want a smart woman. And also that means that if I am sharing myself with somebody physically or whatever, I kind of want to aim for somebody who's got some who's going to make some good choices. Okay, and so ultimately, that consciousness in terms of relationships and money, I think that if you handle that properly, it will accelerate your wealth. If you go back 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, people saw family and marriage and dating as an empire building mechanism. They didn't just see it as, I'm going to go date the prettiest girl I can find, or I'm going to date the cutest guy. They didn't think of it like that. They thought of it as, okay, if we merge this empire with that empire, then, then we can do some amazing things together. And I think it's okay to think of it that way. I know that people think it's taboo and they think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I think that if you're an empire builder, I think that you can find an attractive person that will also build with you, as opposed to an attractive person who will destroy everything that you're trying to build. Just to give you an example of how misaligned financial incentives can be harmful to a relationship. I remember I counseled a couple they lived in the Bronx, and the mother was a bus driver, and the father was I don't know exactly what his job was, but he was involved in hip hop. And he was an OG in hip hop. He was around in the 1970s with DJ Cool Herc and Grandmaster Flash, and all these people were kind of giving birth to this amazing art form. So he used to host parties. He's actually in these hip hop, when they have these hip hop museums and hip hop history books. He's in those books. His party flyers are in those books. It's like the first rap parties they used to have, the first DJ parties they used to have, and so he wanted to be a part of that. He wanted to go on and do what Grandmaster Flash and Curtis Blow and Russell Simmons and all those guys were doing, but instead he chose to get married. Right, so he met this beautiful woman. They got married, and he kind of let go of that dream because he wanted to get married. So what happened was, so 40 years later, I'm meeting with this couple, and the whole time, the whole 40 years, the husband has always had these regrets about, not pursuing that dream. He always had this thing where he was like, gosh, if I had done what my friends were doing, if I had stuck with what my original dream, I could have been over here and been there and living the life and all that. And his wife, was kind of just happy with the life they had. They had a couple of kids and some grandkids, and she was like, okay, we're living a good life. Like, this is good. And so it wasn't necessarily a matter of one person being bad or good. It was really just difference. They were just different people. She was more conservative. He still had these dreams. So here's what happened. So they had a credit card that was maxed out. It was a $10,000 credit card. And as a bus driver, she had been paying down this credit card, just piece by piece, a few $100s whenever she could, and paid that thing all the way down to zero. Well, he still had these dreams of, becoming this hip hop mogul or whatever, and doing these parties, right? Because apparently, if you do a party and everyone comes, then you can make a lot of money, right? And so he ended up maxing out without her permission. He took the credit card, he maxed out the credit card to go and host one of these parties, and the party flopped. He ended up losing money, and the credit card was still full. And I remember that she was crying, like she was crying a lot, and trying to decide if she wanted to divorce her husband or not. But then again, when you're in your 60s, that's a complicated decision. And I think they still stayed together. In fact, he's actually passed on. He was a really nice guy, and it made me sad to see this. But when I saw that interaction between husband and wife, it made me think a lot about that word regret, right? I felt for him. I felt for him in terms of his regret of choosing the marriage and family and feeling that that was a trade-off for the thing that he wanted to actually do. But then also, I wondered how she felt in terms of any regret she had about marrying a man who's going to max out the credit card and then make her start from ground zero all over again. So I would say that maybe regret is connected to ambition. Maybe you minimize regret partly by maximizing the alignment of the ambitions of the people that you link up with, right? So if we both have the same goal, then maybe somehow my regret won't be so bad if I suddenly do something that's very risky or whatever. If we're both in that risk taking mood, so ultimately that word regret is big. And I would encourage you when you're thinking about these relationships in general, any relationships, be really careful with that. Also, another regret that I saw was starting early. When it comes to investing, a lot of people regret this. A lot of people regret this, and this is the regret I'm going to warn you about the most because I really want you to understand. We've talked extensively about literally meditating on the value of time, the power of time. I meditate on time every single morning. I get up, I live my life in those 20-minute increments I told you about because in my mind, I want to maximize the use of my time. So time is something I think should be part of your meditation, not just once every now and then, but literally every single day. And I can tell you this that when you talk about investing, time is the most important variable in the wealth building process. Time is the ingredient that makes it all work. Time is the thing that even if you are a poor person who saves or invests small amounts of money and you and do that for a long period of time, you're going to have so much more money than even wealthy people. If you give me a wealthy guy or a rich guy or a guy who makes a lot of money, better yet, a guy who makes say 300,000 a year, and you put him up against another woman or guy that makes 40,000 a year, but the 40,000 a year person is investing say 3% of their income for 20 or 30 years, there's going to come a point where the person making $40,000 is going to end up having far more wealth than the person making $300,000, right? It's all going to come down to how did you use your time. If you waste time, then you won't have any wealth. Okay, I'm gonna put that slide up here for a second. So go ahead and jot down the reflection for today, and then I'm gonna take it down in a second as well. So when you talk about for financial regrets, I would encourage you to really think about that time issue. And the thing about time that's really funny is that time plays tricks on you psychologically. And let me explain how time tricks you in the world of investing. How many of you feel like the cost of buying a house is insanely high now? How many of you feel like, it kind of sucks that real estate markets are so expensive and houses cost so much? And it used to be they used to be much cheaper, but now if you live in New York or San Francisco, it feels almost impossible to buy property, right? How many of you have felt this way? Like where you kind of feel like, man, this is a bunch of crap. This is so stupid, or maybe even been tempted to say, you know what, I'm going to buy a house when the real estate market cools down and yada yada yada, right? Okay. The funny thing about that statement is if you I saw this video where they were showing an episode of the news in 1983 in San Diego. And what they said in this episode was they said, "Oh my God, real estate prices have gotten out of control here in San Diego. They've just gotten insanely high." And they were like, "No one can afford a house anymore." And they said, "Can you believe that the average price of a house in San Diego is $83,000? That's crazy. Who pays $83,000 for a house?" And now if you go to San Diego, if you spend less than half a million, you're not going to get a nice house in San Diego for less than half a million, right? And so this, and I could use in another example I could throw out there in addition to houses, or is like the stock market. There are people who will look at the stock market and see that the Dow's gotten to 37,000, and they'll say, "Gosh, all the good investments are gone, all the good opportunities are gone. I regret that I missed those great opportunities. So why participate? Why even try?" Because that's the thing about regret. Regret can demobilize you. It can kill your desire. It can depress you to the point where you just say, "Screw it, I'm not going to try because I missed my chance." Right? That's what FOMO can do. FOMO can kill your desire for the future to maximize the future. So, but here's the thing though, the same way that people look at the Dow right now at 37,000 and say, "Oh my God, I missed all the good opportunities. I missed Bitcoin. I missed the growth of Apple or whatever." Well, there were people saying that when the Dow was at 1,000. You do know that, right? You do know that when the Dow hit 1,000, there were people who said, "Oh my God, it makes no sense to invest in the stock market anymore because, I mean, the stock market, all the good opportunities are gone. All the good investments are gone. There's no more money left to be made in the stock market." Right? And so what I want to do is actually show you guys the a chart that shows the history of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is a big indicator of stock market performance. So you look at this, right? It's at 38,000, and that feels like a big number because it is if you compare it to the past, right? And you look here, May of 1992, when some of you were some of you are old enough where you were in high school or college at that time, it was at 3,000. 3,300. You go back to the 80s, 1,800. Even in the year, I don't know, the year what, 2010, 10,000. It's tripled since 2010. 2010 wasn't that long ago. You go to 2016, 17,008. It's doubled since 2016. And so one of the things that happens is that you can look at that and you can regret participating, and it's okay to have that regret because, yeah, you should have been in the game. You should have jumped in there. You should have had your money invested. But what you can't do is allow that regret to cause you to not take advantage of future opportunities, to not understand that there's just as much opportunity that lives in the future as there is that lives in the past. This is based on this is from a guy who has studied stock market data going back over 100 years. That's all we used to do at Syracuse is we would look at data. We were always pulling in stock prices and billions of transactions and doing statistical analysis and all that. And one thing I learned is that ain't nothing new under the sun. You think that you missed your opportunity. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. There's gonna if I when you and I are talking in 5 years, which I hope that we are, we're going to look back and say, damn, look at all the opportunities we missed when we didn't do XYZ back in 2023 or 2024. I guarantee it. I guarantee that in the year 2030, you're going to look back at this year and you're going to say, oh my God, what was I thinking? I missed the opportunity. So you got to ask yourself this question. If you have regret about the past, give me a yes. Everybody, give me a yes if you have some regret about investing from the past. That's probably most of you. Give me a yes if you have a regret. All right. So I'm gonna give you a second. I want everybody to answer so we can really be intentional and conscious about this. If you have any regret about the past, I want you to ask yourself one basic question. How does it feel? Reflect on it. How does it feel? I want you to reflect on the irritation you feel, the pain you feel, the way you want to punch the desk. I want you to really reflect on that. And the reason I want you to reflect on it is because then I want to ask you another question. Do you want to keep feeling that way? Do you want some more? Like because the universe can give you all the regret that you need until you learn your lesson. The universe can keep on giving you regret after regret after regret until you learn whatever lesson you're supposed to learn in this life that you're living. So I'm gonna just tell you, let's not be hard headed. I don't like the pain of regret. I don't like feeling bad. I don't like feeling like I missed my opportunity. I don't like knowing that I had the golden shot and I threw it all away. I don't like that feeling. I don't. And so one of the things that made me really focus and meditate on being proactive instead of reactive is because I missed so many opportunities. And the thing about regret is regret will sleep with you at night like a big grizzly bear in your bed that's bear hugging you and in your, while you're sleeping. Like it won't go away, and it's not just financial regret. I mean, we have regrets when it comes to kids and family and loved ones who are gone and or women we used to love or men, vice versa. I ain't never loved a man like that, but you know what I mean, right? If you loved a man, right? Same thing. And I can just tell you, every day, like sometimes my wife will think I'm a weirdo because I'll just run up and I'll just give her a big old kiss and a big hug and just squeeze the hell out of her, and she'll be like, "What's gotten into you?" And what's really gotten into me is regret. Like I like the avoiding regret. I don't want to regret hugging and kissing you as much as possible if a day ever comes where I can't do that anymore. Do you understand? Right? If I ever lose you, which I hope I never do, but at some point one of us is going to lose the other one. I don't want to look back and say, I wish I had kissed my wife more. I wish I had, taken advantage of the chance to enjoy her while we were young and healthy. Do you understand? So it's not just so when I'm talking about a regret, yeah, we're talking about investing in money. And money can be part of the regret, but it's just generally speaking, like I think that applies to everything in life, everything that matters to you, everything that makes you wealthy, besides the money. The money is only one thing that can make you wealthy, but there's so much wealth. Most wealth is not in the form of money. Don't forget that. So I would encourage you to meditate on regret. One way that I meditate on regret is I sit and I close my eyes and I transport myself 5, 10, 15 years in the future and I look back on my life. I imagine that it's 2040 or 2050 and I start thinking about what will life be like when I'm 20 in the year 2045 if I live that long. In 2045, I'll be 21 years older than I am now, so I won't be 52. I'll be 73. Our baby, who's 13, she won't be 13 anymore. She'll be 34. So I imagine her as a 34-year-old. My parents, who are in their 70s, unfortunately, there's a good chance one or both of them may not be here. There's a lot of things will change, right? And I'll be looking back on what I was doing at this time. Right. And then when I do that meditation, it allows me to then say, okay, let's go back in time and let's get with it. We're not wasting this time because it's fleeting. It's going to go away. It's going to disappear. So I say the same thing is true with your money. The same thing is true with investing. Yes, we talked about Bitcoin. Yeah, you missed the rise of Bitcoin. I told you guys about that video that guy made where he was literally in 2012 begging black people to buy Bitcoin. He said, just buy $100 worth. Please, please. He was begging black people to buy Bitcoin in 2012, and I bet you 99.9% of all people were not listening. And if you bought $100 worth of Bitcoin, the same amount of money we might spend going to the movies or going out to dinner or whatever, $100 worth of Bitcoin at that time that he was begging people to buy it literally would translate into probably about $10 million today. Okay, so we're not going to do that this time. We're going to make a move, right? You don't know what the right move is. You don't know completely, but there are some moves that you know are good moves, right? Like we know historically, based on the data, that a person who consistently invests and consistently puts money in the S&P 500, say the $5 a day plan, which by the way, you can find that at blackwealthmasterplan.com. It's right there above my head. So go to blackwealthmasterplan.com if you haven't taken a look at that. Or also you could text the word stock to 87948. Text stock to 87948. I can send it to you that way too. Little things like that. Because here's the thing: when you waste time and you don't start investing early, and you have that regret, you're kind of stuck with this impossible task of really trying to overcome a lot of heavy financial hurdles without proper adequate momentum. Right? Like, so think about it like, I'm trying to think here. I used to be a track coach. Did y'all know that? I used to coach track and field. I'm a big track and field fan. I know all the best sprinters and all that. I follow them all on Twitter. They don't pay no attention to me, but I got more Twitter followers than them. They should like come and like come on my platform. I'd love to interview them, but they ignore me because they're more important than I am. But anyway, I'm a big track and field fan. Let's describe it like this. If you've ever seen a hurdler run in the track meet, the hurdles are high. I couldn't jump over the hurdles because I'm short, I'm 5'8 3/4 going, but I'm gonna be 6'3" one day, I promise. And if you want to jump the hurdles, you have to get momentum. You have to get a running start. It's really hard to jump a hurdle sitting still, right? If you're standing still and jumping, it's incredibly difficult to jump over that hurdle. But if you get a running start, it's easier because you got that momentum. Well, the same thing is true when it comes to overcoming financial hurdles. Financial hurdles in America have grown every year. Inflation is has been really difficult. It's made things very expensive. Inflation doesn't go backward. You have what they call disinflation, which is where inflation slows down, but you rarely have deflation where prices actually go downward. Most parts of the economy do not have much deflation. It happens every now and then, but doesn't happen very much. So think of inflation like a car driving down the road. Sometimes the car is going 80, sometimes the car is going 40, but the car never stops. The car keeps on going forward, right? It's not coming back to whatever destination it passed. Inflation is like that car. Inflation doesn't typically in the United States ever become negative. So, what's happened in this country is that most people are struggling to pay for things. They paying for the essentials, the house, food, car, lifestyle, whatever. Okay. So, and then the areas where people can't afford it at all are education and healthcare. Education, most people cannot afford to pay for a 4-year university without scholarships and loans and all that, and they can't afford to pay if they get sick. That's why you have insurance, or they get medical debt, and a lot of people go bankrupt because they get sick. The reason part of the challenge and the solution in terms of dealing with these higher expense levels is that you don't really have a running start. It's very difficult to pay for these things with a job. A regular job with regular pay will rarely give you enough to pay for your kids to go to college. It'll rarely give you enough to pay for health care if you get sick. And then for some people, won't even pay for the basic expenses. So the best way to overcome that is through the use of time and getting a running start. So if I have a child that's going to go to college in 20 years, well, what do? I do like a 529 plan so that I'm using time. I'm minimizing my regret by going ahead and investing in that 529 plan. My niece is 5 and my nephew is 3. My brother is investing in their 529 plans now, so that by the time they get to college, they'll have a running start. They'll already have, a couple $100,000 or whatever they need to pay for school, right? Whereas in the other case, if he didn't get a running start, if you waste time, then he's going to end up stuck and say, we can't afford to go to college because college is too expensive. So what I would say to you is that when it comes to investing and when it comes to time, I encourage you to really reflect on that regret, but to realize that with regret on the other side of that regret comes growth, learning, and really an opportunity. The same way that you view yourself, we view ourselves as modern people, right? Like this is 2024, and we're kind of living in the future, so to speak. Like I don't know about anybody else, but I remember when Prince used to sing, "I'm going to party like it's 1999," and I remember living and thinking that 1999 would never get here. I probably it probably makes me sound old, but I don't know if anybody else feels that way. But I remember when 1999 was way off in the future. I remember sitting there thinking, oh man, in 1999, I'll be 28 years old. That's a long time, right? And so it's crazy that 1999 is like old. Like there's probably somebody in this class who was born in 1999. That's scary to me. Don't, don't good for you. I'm glad you're here. But that scares the hell out of me that somebody born in 1999 walks around and says, I'm a grown up and I'm an adult and I've got kids. You're not supposed to have kids. You were born last week. That's not possible. So it's weird, right? So time ends up sort of playing this little trick on us, and we think, okay, it's 2024, this is, we're in this modern era. And one good reflection that I do, a good meditation that I do that really helps me to understand the nature of time and how to minimize regrets and not waste opportunities, is in addition to moving myself forward in the future and looking back, I also understand, like, no, I am not, I'm not the descendant, I am the ancestor, right? I'm not the end of anything. I'm the beginning of something. You understand? I'm the alpha. I'm not the omega. I'm 2024 is not the future. It is the past, right? Or you can look at it as the past. And so sometimes I'll sit and I'll watch like old film. Like, you ever see some of these films on YouTube where they'll show people walking around New York City in like 1910 or 1897? And I just watch these people and I'm fascinated because I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder if they have any idea of how many things are going to happen after they're dead, or how many things are going to happen in the future. I wonder if they probably think they're living in some sort of modern era, which they are, right? If you're living in 1897, that's that's pretty advanced compared to like 1847, right? You're like, oh yeah, back in 1847 we all rode horses. Now we have these new mechanical horses called cars, and we have bicycles and stuff. I think they invented the bicycle around that time, right? So you're thinking that you're living in this modern era, but you're not. And imagine if a person in 1897, because they had so much regret that they didn't invest in 1847 and 1857, that they don't invest at all. They say, well, I missed my chance. I guess I'm not going to do anything. That would be a huge mistake. They would be missing a massive amount of opportunity that would accrue to their descendants. I mean, imagine if you had a grandfather or grandmother who thought like you and I do, and they lived in the 1940s. Imagine if you had a relative in the 1940s who could literally visualize your life in 2024 and said, wait a minute, I'm going to go start investing and buying real estate and stock and assets for my kids now, because now they're super cheap. In 1942, I can buy a house for $5,000 that's going to be worth $1 million. I can go buy stock for $1 that's going to be worth $500. I can do all these things to plant these seeds and prepare for the arrival of all my teammates, prepare for the arrival of all these people that I care about, right? So if I'm living in 1942, the last thing I need to do is be obsessed with 1942 to the point where I don't have enough perspective to understand that 1943 is coming, the 40s are going to end, then the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, right? If I really want to live forever and I'm living in 1942, then I start thinking, what about 1982? What can I do to help my family get ready for 1992? How can I get my family prepared for 2000? We're struggling right now, but if I do basic things right now in 1942, my family will be in a great position and be extremely wealthy by the 1980s, right? There's nothing wrong with that line of thinking, but it was probably weird. I bet very few people thought that way. But the person who did think that way, their families became millionaires. Do you understand? So what you want to do is imagine this is not 2024, this is 1924. That's the year we live in, 1924. And I want you to understand 1934 is coming, 44, 1954, 64, 74, 84, 94, whatever. A lot of things are going to happen after you're gone that you have no idea about. Like, I was sitting there and I was watching these people sitting there, and it was like 1905, and I was thinking, man, they don't even know World War One is coming. Hitler was coming. It was like downtown Berlin, and everybody's walking around in their little fancy coats and dresses and stuff, going to work. And I'm like, they have no idea that Hitler is coming, and Hitler is gonna cause the whole world to attack Germany and blow up and destroy all of Berlin. Like, and I'm just thinking about this, right? So I sit and I think, I wonder what crazy things are going to happen in the future that haven't happened yet, that haven't happened now, that we can't even imagine, right? And I think that having your mind open to that, that's the point, right? And I know, I hope this doesn't sound too weird or too freaky, but I'm trying to help you shape a way to look at your investing so you can understand what kind of an opportunity you have. You see, the biggest thing I learned when I became a professor was not how much I know. The biggest thing you learn when you get that much education is how little you actually do know. You have the known, which is this small, and then you have the unknown, which is much bigger, and then you have the unknown unknowns. The unknown unknown is the size of the universe, and that's infinitely large. So I want you to be conscious of the unknown unknowns. The biggest mistake you can make, I think, as a thinker, is to think that you know everything. I hate talking to people who think they know everything. It is so funny. Like, it'll be somebody that never took a finance class that will argue with me all day about economics, and I'll say, I value and I respect your opinion, but I'm not arrogant enough to think that I know more than you. I'm not going to do that. But at the same time, I wish you would not be so arrogant to think you know more than me, because I do have this thing called a PhD in it, which means I kind of know something, and maybe my opinion could add value to whatever you're thinking. But because you're so closed off, and because you have literally closed the loop on your knowledge base and won't even acknowledge how much there is that you don't know, it's a stupid conversation, and I'm not participating, right? They say that it's hard to win an argument with a smart person, but it's impossible to win an argument with an idiot. Idiots don't argue with idiots. It's impossible to win that argument. Just go and eat your sandwich, walk away, go do something else, because you'll never win. You'll never win. All right, that's a little tip. All right, so let's circle back. So what I want you to do in your financial consciousness journal is, and I'm gonna put this up on the screen one more time, is I'd like for you to just go and list maybe your top 5 financial regrets, your top 5, and then try to see how you can turn that energy into something positive by realizing how much potential there is in the future for you, and not just you, but for the people that are connected to you, right? Remember, our children, grandchildren, that gives us an opportunity to live forever. And so because we love them, we're investing for them, we're preparing for them, because we don't want them to go through some of the things that we've gone through. We also don't want we want to learn from our regrets. Like, the best lessons I ever learned in my life were from people who had a lot of regrets. I had a lot of people in my family who would say, "Don't do what I did." Or, "Boy, you drink like this is what happens." Or, "If you mess around with drugs, this is what happens." So as a result, I never touched drugs. I never touched alcohol. So remember that every mistake that you make, every regret that you have, there's a potential for someone to benefit, starting with yourself, right? We all learn, right? We can learn and grow. But then also, when you're sharing that, when you are the teacher, every year that you're alive, you become a more qualified teacher in this thing called life. You become a student, an experienced student in this thing called life, that allows you to go give lessons to people that are still trying to figure out their way. And then if you're young, I would encourage you, listen to older people, because that'll help you avoid 5 or 10 years worth of dumb decisions that could have been avoided, maybe with one conversation. One conversation with an older person could help you avoid a bad relationship that was going to destroy the next 10 years of your life. So I personally think that there should be more knowledge transfer within our families. I'm a believer in having candid conversations with younger people, particularly in the areas of health, wealth, and relationships, because unfortunately, sometimes, because we are so ashamed of our regrets. My wife talks about shame a lot, and how shame is a bad emotion to have. It's a bad energy to carry. Because we are so ashamed of our mistakes, we don't talk to anybody about it. We're ashamed of our sexual mistakes. We're ashamed of our mistakes when it comes to money. We're ashamed of our mistakes when it comes to our health in other areas, or maybe in relationships that we've ruined, right? Or, and I would encourage you, don't let that shame stop you from realizing that there are people that can benefit from whatever you've gone through, or whatever choice you might have made. And so the last couple of regrets I saw were over student loans and kids. With student loans, I'll make it real simple. College is something that I think is it can be great for a lot of people. But I was sitting here talking to the guy just now that was fixing our heater, and we were talking about college actually. And I said I have so much respect and admiration for guys like you that can actually fix stuff, that can actually do things. I said I said my and he said that actually he was kind of embarrassed that he didn't have a college degree and he wished he had one. And I said no, me and my wife are both college professors, and I think college students are can be beneficial and smart. I said, but I know a lot of college students who can't do anything, and so really that ability to learn a real skill, whatever you do, whether your kids go to college or not, get them in a space where they're going to learn a real skill. Especially if they're black, because the black community needs building skill. We need people that can create things. We need people that can imagine things that could exist. Right? They have to be able to have enough consciousness, enough financial consciousness to live in that fourth and fifth dimension where you're not just looking at what's there, you're looking at what could be there. Right? Let's say the third dimension is where you can see what's there. The fourth dimension is where you can see what was there and what's going to be there. The fifth dimension is when you see what could be there. Do you understand? So this consciousness has to exist. So when we become financially conscious, we won't just look at our community based on where we are. We'll look at our community based on what it could be. We will go to a neighborhood where there's no grocery store, and we won't say, "Gosh, I hope somebody builds a grocery store." We'll go there and we'll say, "Yeah, we could build a grocery store. Let's go raise the capital to build a grocery store." So what does that mean? That means number one, you're gonna need somebody who knows how to go out and raise some money. Number two, you're gonna need somebody who knows how to start a business, file the LLCs and all that, set up the infrastructure to run the damn thing. Maybe number three, maybe you need some connections with people that can grow the food and the produce that would be in the grocery store. Next, you might need people that can do the HVAC and the electrical and the plumbing that can actually build the damn thing, right? And so ultimately, at the end of the day, you need those builders with actual, real, tangible skill. So one measuring stick I would use in general, if you want to talk about what being educated and skilled means to me, it means this. If I had no idea that you went to school, if I had no idea what your credentials were, would I be able to tell that you were qualified to do something? Like if you didn't have that piece of paper that you got from that university or whatever, and I was just talking to you and you were talking to me about what you could do to solve a problem for somebody or what you could do to help me or someone else, would I be able to tell without knowing that you got the degree? Because if you have to tell me that you have a degree for me to know that you are trained or skilled or educated, then that means you're probably not that well trained or that well skilled or that well educated. That's what I would. So I would say that's the benchmark. I think that's the standard when it comes to education and everything else. If you want to know my 2 cents on that. So because student loans are a massive economic regret, particularly for the black community, student loans are probably in the top two or three in terms of reasons why black wealth continuously goes down. It's going down because we have been trained on this model of education and success that says we go to school, make good grades, then go to a white man's college and give them all of our money. You give away all your wealth in exchange for a piece of paper. So you're literally buying your validation, you're buying your self-esteem, you're buying an acknowledgement from a system that is not running controlled by you. You're buying a ticket. You're buying it's like a ticket to Disneyland, except it's not Disneyland. It should be called hell because you're going into the corporate plantation, right? So you literally trade all your family wealth, your good stuff, your valuable stuff in exchange for like this ticket that like says, okay, you come in here with this ticket and you can get a job and you can come work for me, boy. Right? That's what the system is. And so this is why student loans lead to a lot of regret. Well, why? Well, because a lot of educated black people, three-fourths of all black college graduates default on their student loans. They don't repay their student loans. So if three-fourths of all black college graduates are defaulting on sorry, I said three-fourths. I meant to say half, not three-fourths. It's actually half. If half of all black college graduates are defaulting on their student loans, that means that half of all black college graduates are dealing with uncontrollable amounts of debt, uh, horrible credit, the inability to invest or buy real estate or start businesses, because it's very, very, very hard to do those things when your credit score is, 450 or 520 or whatever. Not to say you can't. There are ways around that, and I encourage you to get educated on that. But still, it's really tough, right? And then on top of that, they're not able to provide true financial security for anybody because instead of playing powernomics, you're playing strugglenomics. So ultimately, student loans become a massive regret for a lot of people. And if you have that regret, I don't blame you. I totally get it. I just encourage you to have more thoughtful conversations. Again, conscious conversations with your children and your family about what what that should look like for you, right? What education it needs to look like for you. Um, and that's it. That's it. So we're gonna go ahead and close out for today. I apologize for having to use the first 30 minutes to talk to the HVAC guy. I'm just glad that everything was fixed, and I appreciate your patience on that. And thank you all for filling out the survey. I'm gonna text the survey out as well to you guys, and if you that way, if you came in late and you didn't see the survey before, or actually here, I'll put the survey link in here for those of you that came in late, but then also I'll text it to you. And so if you get it in a text message and you've already filled it out, you can just ignore it. And if you haven't filled it out yet, I would appreciate it very much if you could. Here we go. So there's the link right there, and then we can decide what we want to do once our 30 days are up. And so go ahead today, just fill out, really quick, 5 little regrets, and then I just want you to shut your eyes in quiet if you can for a few minutes and just meditate on it. Just think about it. Think about, meditate on your feelings. Get in touch with how you feel. Get in touch with the future. Get in touch with time. Try kind of think about what you would have done differently. Imagine your life differently, and then imagine what you're going to do. Like if you feel frustrated, what are you going to do with that energy that's going to make your life better or somebody else's life better? Remember, regret is a wonderful opportunity for you to grow. It's an opportunity for you to learn. It's a great opportunity for you to teach. It's a great opportunity for you to be a better person going forward, but you have to process it in the right way so that it turns into what you want it to become. So you're not just sitting around sad and mad and depressed forever. We all feel that way, but you got to take that energy and flip it into something good. So we about to flip that. Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna head on out, guys. Let's see here. I think that's pretty much it. You can text the word morning to 87948 if you haven't done it yet. Text morning to 87948. That way we can stay in touch. And I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. God bless you and have a good day. I'll see you later. Bye bye.